Hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning into episode 22 of the Fourth String Sports Podcast. I am your host, Brady, with my co-hosts, Mitch and Skyler. Say hi, gentlemen.
Hello, world.
Hello.
We are talking about the Miami Dolphins today. Truly one of the more interesting teams in what we think that they're going to do in the next couple of seasons here. We also have some major updates. Welcome to episode 22 of the bombshell allegations come out from the Washington to be determines in regards to sexual assault allegations for employees. We have 3 players. We reached the NFL franchise tag deadline. 3 players did sign their contracts. We're also going to talk about a Bucs player testing COVID-19 positive. And we're going to harken back to our first NCAA story with an update on St. Thomas football. So before we hop into all of that, and we also get into our what's list, where we break down the top 5 NCAA basketball coaches since the year 2000. I want to thank everybody for listening. You can follow us on all the stuff on YouTube, on Spotify, on SoundCloud, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Reddit, all of it, Fourth String Sports Podcast. You can also email us, fourthstringsp@gmail.com. We actually did get a listener email that we'll read off at the end of the episode here. So we do appreciate that listener for emailing us. It's a huge shout out to them. Once we read the email, you'll know who you are. Guys, we've got some interesting episodes coming up. We have Minnesota and then New England, New Orleans.
Yep.
New England, New Orleans, New York's.
Yeah, so we've got some really interesting episodes coming up. So if you guys are fans of any of those teams, send us some emails asking what we think of those teams kind of ahead of time. We'll read them off, as well as if you're fans of any team we've covered previous. Send us an email. We'd love to go back. Again, it looks like we're never going to be able to save that Houston episode. I just cannot for the life of me get it figured out. So sorry, Texans fans. I'm one of you, but it's just gone forever, which might be a good thing, honestly, because we weren't too kind to the Texans. But for everybody else, on all the other episodes, go back, listen to them. Let us know what you think. So
send us an email if you think that Mitch was too hard on the Colts. Send an email if you think I was too easy on the Raiders. Send an email if you think Brady, or if you think, send an email if you think Brady's delusional when it comes to draft grades. I mean, come on, anything really.
Send us an email if Brady's exactly right, because the Rams uniform is the ugliest piece of shit ever created.
It's a draft grades, not uniforms. We all agree there, bud.
Let's see. Send us any emails that just hates on Nebraska football. We'll love it all. We'll read it all. But no, we appreciate everybody. So
bonus points if you send something I haven't heard before.
Exactly. So 3 NFL players signed their contract extensions. Now, a few players didn't. Notably, Dak Prescott. Supposedly, him and the Cowboys were down to the wire on it. But I think the deadline was 4 p.m. on, Tuesday or Wednesday, and they just couldn't get the deal done in time. But some notable players did. Those players include the Chiefs guy. Oh, my God.
Chris Jones.
There we go. Chris Jones signed a 4-year, $85 million contract, $60 million guaranteed with the Chiefs. So somehow the Chiefs went from having no cap money at all to being able to sign everybody on every kind of contract extension that they want. Derrick Henry, who I was really waiting to hear what kind of contract he would get, ended up signing a 4-year contract back with the Titans. And Myles Garrett gets paid a crap ton of money to stay in Cleveland. 5 years, $125 million, $100 million guaranteed. I saw a thing that it was based off of how much money he's going to make. He could hit Mason Rudolph in the head with his helmet like 250 times or 2,500 times before he would it would reach how much money he's going to make. So he can do that a few more times before before he actually starts to feel it on his checkbook. What do you guys think of those extensions? As well as maybe some of the guys that we didn't mention who didn't sign extensions and will play on the trade or on the franchise tag?
Well, first I'll start off with who got an extension. I said it before, right before we started recording. I don't think Myles Garrett is worth that kind of money. In my personal opinion, I don't think he's lived up to the hype coming out of college in the NFL so far, and I don't think he's worth that kind of money. But I agree with Chris Jones. I mean, he's their best defensive player. He's a top 5 defensive lineman, in my opinion. I'm really interested to see how between that contract and Mahomes' contract, it's going to hurt the Chiefs. But when it comes to people who did not get an extension, I think Dak's gone. I mean, They didn't get him the contract that he wants, and now his brother's basically saying, like, I'm not a Cowboys – I've never been a Cowboys fan, but I'm especially not going to be one anymore because of this. So I think he might be out of his way of town, and Andy Dalton might be taking over the show in Dallas. So that could be fun and interesting. But, yeah, I think that's really the only notable one who didn't get signed that comes out to me.
Yeah, I mean, with Myles Garrett, I mean, I agree. He's not like he's definitely not like a top 10 pass rusher in the league. But going off like best defensive player, I do think he's one of Cleveland's best defensive players. So I think that in Cleveland's mind, he is worth the money, which I can see. I don't think I agree. I think that's a little overpaid for him, but I think that he's being at least consistent when he's not beating players over the head with helmets. And then I think that AJ Green not signing his extension is also a little bit of note because I mean, yeah, they have Tyler Boyd, John Ross the third, just drafted T Higgins, but I think Cincinnati is looking at it. I think Cincinnati and AJ Green are both looking at this, and if Joe Burrow lives up to the hype, he's a pretty good quarterback. We'll see if he does that. Then I think AJ Green will sign an extension, but if he doesn't, AJ Green might be looking somewhere else because if he's an older quarterback or older wide receiver in a group of really young, talented wide receivers. We'll see if he wants to stay, depending on the situation in Cincinnati. Also, Joe Thurney didn't sign his for New England, and there have been talks about maybe trading him to somebody else. So I'm gonna keep an ear to the ground and see what happens in New England camp with that. If he's not signing the extension, or they don't come to an extension, whether or not he stays after this next season.
Thanks for that insider info.
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting because there were, I think, 15 players who ended up getting either franchise or transition tagged, and only like 4 of them ended up signing a contract. So Shaq Barrett, edge rusher who came out of his own at Tampa Bay, didn't sign an extension. Kenyon Drake and the Cardinals are reportedly nowhere close on a long-term deal. Bud Dupree is actually filing a grievance against the Steelers to be paid as a defensive end rather than a linebacker because he'd make more money. AJ Green didn't sign an extension. Anthony Harris didn't sign an extension. Hunter Henry didn't sign an extension. Matthew Judon for the Ravens, who's been a trade asset, like a trade talk, big piece of that, hasn't signed an extension. Not surprisingly, Unique Ngakoue, the DN for the Jaguars, didn't sign an extension. Dak Prescott, we talked about. Brandon Sheriff signed the franchise tag but didn't sign an extension. Justin Simmons, safety for Denver, signed the franchise tag, didn't sign an extension. Joe Thuney, and then Leonard Williams for the Giants. So there's some really notable players. I mean, we've talked a few times about how like Brandon Sheriff is the only notable, probably the only good offensive lineman on the Washington Redskins. And he's on right now a 1-year deal. Justin Simmons, we've all been very high on him. Go back and listen to our Denver episode. He's still only there for 1 year. You know, New England, who we'll actually talk about, lost one of their centers going to Miami. Joe Thuney being on a 1-year deal isn't great for them. So, I mean, yeah, I feel good. I'm happy for the guys who did sign. The one that stands out to me is Hunter Henry, actually, for the Chargers, because I feel like the Chargers, a large portion of their offense is heavily reliant on Hunter Henry and on what it is that he's going to bring to the table, as well as how healthy he's going to end up being. Him not signing that is worrisome to me because I think he's a good tight end. I think he's one of the better tight ends in the NFL. His issue is that he just can't stay healthy. All right. Like, and everybody knows it. Everybody understands it. So we'll see what that is. But yeah, I mean, great for Derrick Henry, great for Myles Garrett, great for Chris Jones. Chris Jones threatened to hold out. For everybody else, it puts some of those organizations, and some of those organizations are in serious playoff or Super Bowl contention, have now an issue, as well as we're all talking about going into a season next year where the cap could be severely reduced due to COVID-19. So it's stuff to keep an eye on. Those players, if I am not mistaken, now cannot sign a new deal until the end of this league year, which would be mid-March. But those teams that they do play with would have first-come terms in terms of signing them. There'd be before the what is it called? Before the period where the other the tampering period.
Oh, the tampering period, yeah.
Before the tampering period, the other teams would have the ability to re-sign them. So it is interesting. Now, other news: Eric Bledsoe, the guard for the Milwaukee Bucks, tested COVID-19 positive. That story actually just broke on ESPN. He has yet to make the trip to Orlando, so he is not in Orlando yet for the season restart. He is feeling fine. There's no timetable when he will get there. Obviously, he will have to test not positive for at least, I believe, 4 days before he can actually go down. So that'll be an eye on that. But with season coming to, I think because he's tested positive, I think if you test positive, it takes longer before you can actually go down.
I think you have to quarantine, and then consistently test negative.
Yeah, but I don't know how consistent it is, because I know if you leave the bubble, it's 2 days. But I believe if you test positive before you get there, or if you test positive while you're out of the bubble, it's a little bit longer because they want to make sure you're not asymptomatic or anything.
It won't mean anything until playoff time comes around for the Bucks, anyways, because the Bucks are guaranteed a playoff spot. Now,
they're almost guaranteed the 1 seed. They basically have to lose every game, and then the Raptors win every game. So
there's 2 teams that could top them. It's the Bucks or the Raptors and the Celtics. They both could top them, but like you said, the Bucks would have to lose almost every single game. And as long as Giannis is playing, that's probably not happening. So,
yeah, because they're actually no the Celtics. I guess theoretically could catch them. They're 9.5 games behind the Bucks with only 8 games to play, but there is one head-to-head matchup in there. So theoretically, I think they could catch them. The Raptors are 6.5 games behind them, so the Bucks would have to go 1-7 or worse in order to not have the 1 seed there. So it's more likely guaranteed.
It's more likely that the Celtics will get the 2nd seed actually than the 1st, but because I think they have a head-to-head against the Raptors, and then the Raptors just don't have an easy schedule in the bubble. So it's let's wait and see.
But then also other news, an update from an episode that we did a while ago. In fact, I couldn't even really tell you what episode that was. The St. Thomas Tommies, the team who played D3 and won their conference just an oodle amount to the point where their conference actually threatened to disband unless the team was kicked out. They have gotten the okay to join the Pioneer League and join FCS football. FCS football means that they'll be playing with the likes of, not necessarily in the same conference, I believe, but the likes of like North Dakota State, Delaware State, Eastern Washington, University of Montana, that kind of stuff. So that's great news. We talked about that actually in regards to how high they were going to go up. So Mitch, do you think it's good for them to go up to FCS?
Yeah, I feel like that's a good place for them. Like you said, they were just so down in D3 that the conference wanted to get rid of them, and they did. So I'm excited to see how well they're able to make that transition up to the D1 and how well they're going to perform. Obviously, it's a good idea not to bring them up all the way to FBS because I don't think they would do that well. But I think FCS is a good place for them.
Here's the other teams that are in the Pioneer Football League: San Diego, Dayton, Drake, Davidson, Marist, Stetson, Morehead State, Butler, Jacksonville, and Valparaiso, with San Diego winning it, going 8-0 in the conference and 9-3 overall last year.
Yeah, it is kind of funny because if you look at the way that the states are located, so you're not going to have Minnesota, which is where St. Thomas is from, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So you're like, okay, like that makes sense. That's almost pretty similar to like what the Big Ten looks like. Or even the MAC, but then they've also got a team in New York, North Carolina, Florida, and California.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that I'm most interested about in terms of them going to D3 going to FCS because of those road games. That's a larger expense for a Division III program to incur.
What was that? I saw something that they were like, division football, conference football is going to make so much sense because it's not a lot of travel, and then they were like citing like Arizona to Washington, Nebraska to Rutgers, and some other instead of like Iowa to Iowa State. And I'm like,
everybody in the Mountain West to Hawaii, just like that.
I was like, okay, like I get what you're saying, but the reason why they were doing conferences, just like solid tangent conferences, is because it was easier to do testing and to abide by certain rules than it was to like go over than travel. But I mean, no, I think like going into this, I think that, and they won't start until 2021 either, so they still have another year if Division III decides to play another season of playing in Division III. So you know what? Maybe they should just keep stacking up those wins and get another trophy before they have to head off.
But they're not in their conference. They won't play next year in their conference. They have to schedule their own games. So.
Yeah, they'll be like that, which will make it tough with COVID. Yeah. But
I mean, if Notre Dame can do it, you know.
Yeah, they'll just like Alabama, LSU.
I mean, I think St. Thomas is actually bigger than Notre Dame.
School size,
because St. Thomas is like 10,000 students.
Well, let's look it up.
But they're also both private Catholic schools. I think Notre Dame just has the prestige.
So let's see, St. Thomas University.
Do undergrad too, not full student population, just undergrad.
Well, yeah, you guys got to make small talk while I try to find this.
Well, I'm looking up Notre Dame.
St. Thomas has just a hair under 6,100 undergrad students.
Oh, 8,624.
Actually, that's not far off.
That's not far at all.
No, that's not far off at all. Okay, and then, yeah, so those are some of the little side updates. Now, as I stated, we will get to the Washington Redskins allegation story that did break, but we've got a surprise for them at the end of the episode. We've talked about the Redskins extensionally. Well, I guess I can't call them the Redskins. We've talked about the Washington to be determined extensively quite a few times here, but an absolute bombshell of a post that had been hinted out for a while from the story from the Washington Post dropped today that we're going to go a little bit in depth on. But before we do that, Skylar, you were in charge of our what's list. So what is the topic? And I go first, I think?
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Okay, so what's the topic here?
The topic for what the fuck were you thinking list this week was top 5 college basketball coaches, both men's and women's, since the year 2000. So you're only, even if they coached before 2000, you're only looking at their achievements 2000 to 2019. So yeah, there that lists all. So 5 of them. Brady, you go first.
Yeah, so this was difficult for me because I truly wanted to include women's basketball, and I did. Actually, 3 of my 5 spots are women's basketball coaches because I feel like there's a lot more dominant teams and dominant coaches and programs in women's basketball than anything else. So number 5 on my list is Kim Mulkey, head coach of Baylor University. She's been at Baylor for 20 seasons, so technically she started in 1999. 575 wins, 3 national titles. She has never endured a losing campaign. And I actually meant to put her at 3. I wrote my list wrong, but whatever. She's never endured a single losing campaign. In fact, only 2 of her teams during her tenure have ever had double-digit losses. She's actually had 9 straight seasons with 30-plus wins. She's won 10 straight Big 12 regular titles and 10 tournament titles in her career, as well as 3 national championships. She's a stud of a coach. Number 4 goes to Tom Izzo, head coach from Michigan State University. 600 wins, 8 Final Four appearances, 15 regular and 15 regular and tournament titles. In his tenure, he's produced absolute monsters. He does only have 1 national championship, and that was in the year 2000, so that's why he sits at number 4. Kim Mulkey was supposed to be number 3, and I had to change my list here. So the person who was supposed to be number 5 was actually Muffet McGraw, head coach from Notre Dame. While she's been at Notre Dame, she's won 2 titles in 2001 and 2018. She's won 8 or gone to the 8 Final Fours. She's actually taken her team to 7 national championship games. Unfortunately, she just consistently runs into the number 1 coach I have on my list. And she's won 5 ACC tournaments. Number 2 on my list goes to Coach K. I fucking hate Coach K, and I hate Duke, but 3 titles in his tenure, 3 titles since the year 2000. He's got 11 ACC title, 4 Final Four appearances. He's been a dominant coach, and we can just look at the likes of the players that he's produced. And then number 1 goes Gino Auriemma. 10 championships since the year 2000, 6 Coach of the Year awards. He's the only coach who's had 5 teams who have ever gone undefeated in a season, and 4 of them have been since the year 2000, where they won the national championship. Gino Auriemma is a stud. He's a monster that hides in your closet for women's basketball. Yeah, he's lost some games, but he's an absolute dominant head coach at UConn, and that's why he's number 1 on my list.
I mean, I got to give you some props for that list. The one person that I'm a little weird about, having on your list is Pat Summitt, who did amazing things with Tennessee. But I'll get to that later because she's on my list. But no, I gotta applaud it. I didn't even think of the Notre Dame head coach. Didn't even think of her, because honestly, how many times she's gone into UConn and lost to her or lost to them as a team. But no, I love the Notre Dame women's basketball team. They're always really fun to watch. And I can't believe I forgot to put her on my list.
Yeah, so there was a reason behind leaving Pat Summitt off the list, and the only reason was that she retired in 2012. Everybody else on my list is still active, so unfortunately they've had 8 more years to kind of pad those stats. Pat Summitt is a fantastic head basketball coach. May she rest in peace. She was a wonderful human being as well. Coached at the University of Tennessee until 2012. From the year 2000 till then,
I got her stats. I'm gonna bring them up during mine.
So no, she was great, but honestly, just because she only had 12 years and all these other people had 20, that was sort of the deal breaker for me.
Makes sense.
Oh boy, I guess I'm up.
Yep.
All right, so starting with number 5, I have the former head coach of the UW Badgers, that is Bo Ryan. At number 4, I have Pat Summitt. She would have been a little bit higher, but as Brady alluded to, she retired during the 2000s, so on and so forth. So other teams had a chance to pad their stats. Number 3, I have Calipari. And then number 2, I have Coach K. And then at number 1, I have Gino Auriemma.
I think it's Auriemma.
Auriemma. Gino Auriemma.
What's the rationale behind Calipari, Mitch?
I just think that the kind of talent that he's produced, in his tenure there, just him being consistently up there with Coach K and Duke, and it's basically this whole since 2000 and whatever, it's been Duke or Kentucky as those 2 top tier programs, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to that, especially with a guy like Coach K, who is regarded as one of the best, if not the best, coach in college basketball history. So that's why I got to give him some props.
Okay. My thing is I prefer Tom Izzo over Coach K, or over John Calipari, not Coach K. But okay, I understand the rationale. Statistically, they're actually pretty even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going back between the two of them too. But no, I think
I like Tom Izzo a little bit better. I think he's a fun little man.
He kind of is. And then that brings it to my list. Number 5, Tom Izzo. He's been to the Final Four 7 times since the year 2000. He's won the Big Ten. He won 8 Big Ten regular season championships since the year 2000. He's won 6 Big Ten tournaments, or 5 Big Ten tournaments since the year 2000, and 2 Coach of the Year in the year 2000. So that's number 5. His resume speaks for himself. I got Pat Summitt at number 4. Even with her not only coaching 12 years, she still won 2 national titles. She went to every Final Four between the year 2002 to 2008, which I think is just insane to have 6 consistent years of being one of the top 4 teams in women's college basketball. Won a total of the only year between 2000 and 2008 she didn't make it to the Final Four was 2001. SEC tournament champions 2000, 2005, 2006, 2008, and then 2010 to 2012. So just those kinds of that kind of consistent success. Later on she did drop off a little bit, but she was still doing very consistent things throughout the year 2000 on, in my opinion. Number 3, I actually have Roy Williams, former coach of both Kansas and UNC, who he died.
No, Roy Williams is still the coach.
He is. Wow, I was confusing him with someone else. Sorry, Roy Williams. That he has won 3 NCAA Division tournaments: 2005, 2009, 2017. He has made 7 Final Four appearances since the year 2000. He has won 9 ACC regular season championships, 3 ACC tournaments. He won 2 Big 12 tournaments with Kansas. So he's with 2 teams. He did amazing things with them. He continues to do amazing things with them. This last year was not the best for him, but
they were
still they were horrible. But they are still doing amazing things. Consistent. Number 2, Coach K. Because like everybody else has said, consistent success. He's been there since '80. He's won 1,000 games. He's won championships, 3 championships.
Lehigh, though.
Say that again.
Still lost to Lehigh. C.J. McCollum and Lehigh. Do you guys remember that?
I do.
Back
That was
God, what was that? Like 2011 or something?
I think it was. But no, he's Coach K is a model of consistency.
Yeah, league of his own.
Yeah, and I mean, he hasn't won a Coach of the Year award since 1999, but I think it's because everybody just expects him to be an amazing coach. So there's that, and then like everybody else, number one, Gino Ariema, did not miss a Final Four from 2008 to 2019. 11 years they were in the Final Four. They won 4 straight national championships.
It was almost like they didn't even have to play anybody else. It was like they just started the tournament in the Final Four.
From 2008 to 2019, they made 11 years. They won almost, I think, 6 of those. So they have like, it's like 50% chance that they make it to the Final Four. They're going to win the national championship.
It's like a 50% chance from 2000 to 2019. It's over a 50% chance they're going to make it to the Final Four. And then once they get there, it's over a 50% chance that they're going to win the national championship.
Yeah, the longest.
It's just ridiculous.
The funny thing is he had a 5-year stretch where he didn't win a national championship.
And yet he still has 10 national championships.
And he had a 4-year stretch. He had a 4-year stretch where they didn't make the Final Four.
Yeah.
25 conference tournament championships. 26 conference regular season championships. So only 1 year did they win the regular season championship and then not win the conference tournament later. Also over 1,000 wins. He's been there since '85. Between him and Coach K, models of consistency in both men's and women's basketball. They're both also models of consistency in the Olympic teams. Coach K has not lost a gold medal in the Olympics yet. But we're talking, he hasn't. 2008, 2012, 2016, he won the gold medal. But he also had the likes of Kobe and LeBron and some of those guys on their teams. But no, I think we all kind of agreed. I mean, with just a little bit of fighting, like 4 and 5. But other than that, I think this is a good list. I like this list, and it was nice to go back and look at some of these, like Pat Summitt, and see what she did with her career, even only going to 2012.
Yeah, and I have absolutely nothing against Pat Summitt. Leaving her off the list was purely because we're doing the 20 years. And when you're doing 20 years and you haven't coached in 8 of it, to me, I just had to look at the entirety of it. If we had done best coaches from 2000 to 2010, she might be number 1, honestly.
Yeah.
Like she might have been number 1. But that's just my rationale on it. Now, Mitch, I'd like to hear your rationale on Bo Ryan on your list, because I didn't give you any flack for that. I appreciate being a homer. I do.
No, it's not homer, because
what is it?
Look at his career. He started at D3 Platteville. He worked his way up and made it successful. Then he goes to D2 Milwaukee, and he puts them on the fucking map. And then he goes to D1 Wisconsin Badgers, and look at all the success he got there. And then we almost won the national championship in 2015. So he worked his way up from the fucking bottom and became a Hall of Fame coach, where some of these guys were starting at a D1 program as an assistant coach or whatever and got the, advantages of that. So I think that's why Bo Ryan deserves the props to be top 5.
I mean, I get it, but like putting him over like Roy Williams or who's the coach from Notre Dame?
Muffet McGraw.
Yeah, Muffet McGraw.
She's the women's coach at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I mean, I can understand that. I respect the grind. But when it comes to just what they've done in Division I basketball, I'd have to get, like, if we were doing like all divisions, Bo Ryan would probably be up there. But because we were just doing 2000, because if we were doing all time, then like John wouldn't be on this list because he deserves to be on this list. But no, I agree. I think that the grit and the grind needs to be appreciated. Whether or not I agree with him on the list.
Yeah, I mean, like, I get it. I do, but it's like, I remember there were some lean years there in terms of just not having conference tournament success. I mean, he didn't get to the Final Four until we went back-to-back years. So I don't know. I guess I think maybe if we did top 10, I'd understand the rationale, but I don't know if he constitutes top 5.
Is Bo Ryan still the coach at Wisconsin?
No, it's like great guard.
Okay.
Yeah, he left left. What did he leave, Mitch? He left a couple seasons ago, right?
Yeah, he left like 2 years after we lost in the national championship.
Did he go somewhere else?
No, he's retired.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't started paying attention to basketball in general or at least college basketball.
His son's a head coach now at UW Green Bay.
Nice.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's the men's basketball coach at UW Green Bay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I started going to college that I started paying more attention to college basketball, which is kind of sad, but
Yeah, you missed
his life. Oh, I watched some. I remember watching the Butler, Kentucky, right? Was that it? Their first one where they were Cinderella with Gordon Hayward?
Yes, I believe so.
I remember watching that game. That game was a lot of fun to watch, and I remember watching the back-to-back buzzer beaters with Villanova and is that UNC?
No. Wait.
It was a blue blood. The back where it's like the one team hit a buzzer beater and then they're like Villanova has no chance of winning this game, and then Villanova.
That was UNC Villanova, and then the next year UNC beat Gonzaga to win it.
I'm
sad about that.
I'm still want Gonzaga to win one. I want them to win one.
I really wanted them to win that one.
I think they could have won it this year, but I mean, there's a lot of teams that could have won it this year.
Yeah,
but
what is it? What's the school with Obi Toppin?
Dayton.
Yeah, Dayton.
Yeah, I thought Dayton had a good shot.
They were named the simulation winners?
No, the Badgers were.
UW Wisconsin was named the simulation. They had shirts that they were selling.
CBS Sports named Dayton their winner. That's who they did. And I think. And then somebody named Gonzaga. I can't remember.
I feel bad for Gonzaga. Gonzaga doesn't get credit for being the blue blood that they are. Now, granted, they're playing a great conference, but
they're the pride of Mid-America.
Yeah, they're somebody's pride.
And the thing that they do is they just recruit overseas players and bring them to Gonzaga, and they're like, "You can't speak English, but guess what? Nobody else on the team can. Let's go."
But then they never do anything in the NBA. All right, so now let's move on here to the team of the day. We're talking about the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins, who went 5-11 last year, started the year out 0-7. But here's what I appreciate about the Miami Dolphins is that they started out 0-7, end the season 5-4, including winners of 2 straight. Then they lost 2, 1, lost 2, and then finished the season out with 2 straight wins, including winning in New England. I think they said the first time since 2010 or something like that. Yeah, it had been a long time.
New England never has good luck with Miami. We always split the series, even though we never should.
Yeah, true. But what I really liked about Miami last season was that their first 2 games, they get outscored, 82 or 92 to 10. But then it was just consistent growth. They lose 31-6, and then they lose 30-10, and then they lose 17-16. And the games just get a little bit closer and a little bit closer until they beat the Jets to get their first win, turn around, beat the Colts to get their second, have a big win later in the season against a Philadelphia team who eventually went to the playoffs, which means that Miami has more wins against teams over 500 than I believe the Dallas Cowboys did last season. And then close the season out with wins against Cincinnati and the Patriots. So before we or to talk about just some statistics, Ryan Fitzpatrick, the team's leading passer, as well as the team's leading rusher, unfortunately, with only 243 rushing yards. Yes, that's really sad, but technically their leading rusher by the end of the season because Kenyon Drake was traded. Devontae Parker had a coming out year of 72 catches, 1,202 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Before we get into their free agent losses and pickups, boys, where do you put the Miami Dolphins? In or in need of a rebuild, in or in need of a reload, 8-8 playoff tier, Super Bowl caliber tier?
Man, I don't want to say rebuild because I think they're on a really good path. And then
you can say in a rebuild, active in a rebuild. Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure about that. Okay, yeah. So I definitely think they're in a rebuild. I think they drafted their franchise quarterback. We'll talk about that, and they got some really nice pieces in free agency. So, and I think they've got their head coach for the foreseeable future. So I feel like they have some pieces in place, but now they gotta get a complete football team together. Last year, obviously, we saw they were shit, but I definitely think they're on the right path, and they're still a few years in need of a rebuild until they can get to in serious contention for just being a regular team.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's hurting this team is experience, honestly, at all levels. Head coaching, offense, defense, special teams, it's experience. Now, the talent is there. We saw that at different times against Philadelphia, against New England. They have the talent in order to win games. I think that it's going to be some growing pains in Miami for a little bit. And this is, I would say, as a New England fan, it hurts me to say it, but this is the most optimistic I've been about a Miami team in a long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, just I would say, and not this year, but not, and then maybe not next year, but 2 years, 3 years time, this is a team that's going to be contending in the AFC East because we have no idea what New England's going to look like from 2 or 3 years from now. We have no idea what Buffalo is going to look like 2 or 3 years from now. The Jets are probably still going to suck. So you know what? Like Miami, it's like I think they got a head coach that might not know exactly what he needs to do, but he knows the path that it takes to go in the right direction. He could look at the Miami team and not like he wasn't bullshitting the media when he was talking about like we need to fix things. And I mean, granted, they were fielding players in week 1 that had only been a part of the team for like maybe a week. So
well, yeah, there were various points throughout the season where they made the Laramie Tunsil and Kenny Stills trade just days before regular season started. Minkah Fitzpatrick trade was, I think 3 or 4 games into the season. Kenyon Drake trade was right before the deadline, so their guys were switching in and out consistently.
Which makes sense because he inherited a team that was built by one of the worst head coaches in football, Adam Gase, and not himself. And I mean, we talked about it. What was it last episode where we were like, Brian Flores looked like a disappointed dad on the sideline, and it really was getting to the point where he had a Bill Belichick mentality. What have you done for me? Those guys did nothing for him, or they did just enough for him to be like, you're valuable. We're sending you out. So it was really at that point that it's, I mean, I like it because it's something that Matt Patricia and the other Belichick disciples haven't done. They just like look at Patriot players and are like, you're cool. I used to work with you. We're going to bring you in, which I mean, Brian Flores did some of that, but it was also like, there was no, like, you're the most valuable person on this team. I can't get rid of you. It's like, no. Are you hurting this team's chances of success? You're gone then. And we saw that it worked for them later in the season when they won 5 of 9.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm optimistic, but I still think this is going to be they still need experience and time to grow as a team.
Yeah. I'm going to put this team in the same as in a rebuild because that's what they are. They're active within a rebuild right now. Now, there's portions of this Miami team that I love. Like, I love some of the steps they're taking. We hinted at it in the Houston episode, which, again, unfortunately isn't up, but Miami got a steal for Laramie Tunsil. They got Houston's first-round pick this year, and then they got their first and their second-round pick next year. They got a first-round pick this year from the Steelers for Minkah Fitzpatrick. They got, I think, a third or a fourth for Kenyon Drake. In fact, I could actually look it up here right now. So like they had some massive trade assets that they can really use to build this team. And I don't think that any of the trades that they made were anything against the players. I think that what they were was that there was value there in other areas, and that they knew some of those guys. In fact, all of those guys, Laramie Tunsil, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Kenyon Drake, were all coming up for contracts very soon. And Miami, knowing what they wanted to do, knew that they couldn't pay them. So they kind of did what I do on Madden, which is when a guy won't sign the contract I want him to sign, I just trade him right away. Like, I want to get something out of him, Mm-hmm. And that's a crappy way to treat. That's a crappy way to treat players. Don't get me wrong, but Miami used it to their benefit. They had 3 first-round picks this year, 2 second-round picks. They're going to have multiple first-round and second-round picks next year. They even made trades with Green Bay to pick up another 4th-round pick in this last draft. They made a bunch of draft day trades. Like, they were fantastic. I like what Brian Flores is doing. I liked watching consistent growth from this team as the season went on. You saw them, the effort was always there, but you saw them just get more consistent. You saw them gel a lot more. And honestly, that game against Philadelphia was one of my favorite games to watch, where they run the little fake and the punter flips it to the kicker for the touchdown. Was so funny. And I don't know if you guys listened to it, but Christian Wilkins was mic'd up for that game, and it was one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. because he was on the field goal unit, and the Eagles players are walking off, and he's laughing at him. He's like, "You guys fell for it, like you idiot!" It's so funny.
I'll have to go back and watch that game then.
It's great. It's an awesome game, and it's because at that point Philadelphia they were fighting for playoff positioning. They were a good team, and that loss was just astonishing. I like the steps that Miami has taken. I think Miami to me is similar to Cincinnati, where they're a team that's on the up and up if everything can gel together. So let's talk about their free agent losses and the free agent pickups. Honestly, not very many notable losses. The only ones that I really saw were Taco Charlton, the first rounder from Dallas, who they signed. He went to Kansas City. John Jenkins, a defensive end, went to Chicago, and Evan Boehm, a center, went to Buffalo. And then their pickups, just to name a few, they had a very active pickup season, very similar to the Raiders. Kyle Van Noy, linebacker from New England by way of Detroit. Eric Flowers, left guard from Washington. Byron Jones, corner from Dallas. Ted Karras, center from New England. And Matt Breida was a draft day trade from San Francisco at the running back position. So how do you guys grade their free agent losses and pickups?
So for losses, I have to give it a C, just because of the losing Minkah Fitzpatrick. But all the other free agency losses wasn't a loss. So otherwise it would have been an A if not for the Fitzpatrick loss. So that's why I have it there. And then with the free agents, I really like the Van Noy signing. I think he could really upgrade this linebacking core. And then Byron Jones, of course, with him and Xavier Howard in the secondary, that boosts their defense. And then I'm curious to see how Matt Breida does with that offense, because after they lost Kenyon Drake, they really didn't have a running back. So I'm interested to see if he can take on, that RB1 mantle. So with that being said, I'll give him a B minus, because they got a lot of solid guys, but nobody who I would consider a star.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it all and just give it kind of a B in general, because I think that looking at it, we, like they said, didn't lose really anybody of note. I think the Minkah Fitzpatrick, they had gone past that. They were done with it by the time the season was over. They had kind of found a way.
And they got a first-round pick out of it.
And they got a first-round pick, which they used later for, which we'll get to use for a defensive back. I'm questionable about the Kyle Van Noy, because I think that a lot of pass rushers they look at from New England and they're like, this guy got a shit ton of sacks. He must be a really good pass rusher. But, I mean, we also have one of the best pass defenses in the country, in the NFL. So, I mean, you also look at that, how many of those are coverage sacks, which if they are a lot of coverage sacks, then can Miami's defensive backfield replicate? I don't know if they can. But I still think Kyle Van Noy is a good player. He balled out for New England every single time he stepped on the field. If he wasn't on the field, I missed him. We missed, it was a presence that was missed. Byron Jones, I think, was definitely upgraded their secondary. I think the fact that they got him when a lot of teams kind of wanted him, I think was speaking to what Brian Flores wanted to do as a head coach. He wanted to get some defensive players in there. You see it with his free agency. Ted Karras, the center from New England, I think, again, he's doing something different than other Belichick disciples. He actually looks at the production. He looks at the players that played in New England. He isn't just getting New England castaways. He's getting New England players that actually benefited to the team. I will say Ted Karras wasn't our best center, but he was a good center. So it was something that he stepped in and he needed to play center, and we needed him as a center, and Miami got, which good for them. And it upgrades their offensive line, which again was definitely a key need for them. One quarterback that's injury prone, like Tua. So I have to give it a B.
I actually give it a B plus. So we're all within that B range there. The Kyle Van Noy pickup and the Byron Jones pickup I like, but they were both kind of coming off of career low years. Not great years statistically for either of them. They weren't as dominant as they previously had been. And Kyle Van Noy also was a dud when he was in Detroit. That he was a trade for New England that a lot of people questioned, like, why are you trading for this guy? When New England did pick him up. Obviously, his production then increased. The two picks that I actually love is I love the Ted Karras and the Eric Flowers pick. Now, neither of those guys are absolute stars, but here's why I like them. Eric Flowers was trash with the Giants because Eric Flowers was playing tackle, and Eric Flowers is a guard. He wasn't fantastic with the Redskins, but the Redskins' offensive line was in shambles as is. What I like is that he started 16 games last year at the guard position. First time in his career he had started all 16 games. The opportunity for him to develop at the guard position is there because, unfortunately, he was stunted for years with the Giants playing tackle, and he got kind of a reputation as not being a good player. So I like the pick because it addresses a need on the interior offensive line that they had, and he should give you 16 games of production. The Ted Karras picks, he had 15 starts last season at center. He played 90% of snaps. He's solid. He's not fantastic, but it's a solid upgrade over the offensive line. Honestly, I couldn't name you one member of that Dolphins offensive line after Laramie
Michael Dieter.
Michael Dieter, but only because he's from Wisconsin. Like that was honestly it. I mean, that offensive line was a wreck. It was in shambles. And I think for someone like Matt Breida, their halfbacks trade pickup from San Francisco to succeed, and he can succeed. He had 600 rushing yards and about 120 receiving yards last year in that running back by committee system. He can succeed there. The offensive line has to grow. Defensively, I think it builds. Kyle Van Noy is going to be a nice asset to work with. Xavier Howard being able to be paired up with Byron Jones does help their pass system. I still have questions at the safety position. I still have questions in the offensive or in the linebacker position, but I like some of the other guys they have, like Raekwon McMillan and stuff like that. So I give it all in all a B+. Again, no stars, but I like that they're majority complementary pieces.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to their draft. Miami had 11 draft picks, 7 of which were part of trades. Miami had 5 picks within the first 39 draft choices. They had 3 first-round picks. The number 5 overall pick was their own, and then they picked up the 18th overall pick as part of the Laramie Tunsil trade, as part of the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade. Then they did originally have the 26th pick as part of the Laramie Tunsil trade, but they traded back with Green Bay to get the 30th overall pick. So many of these picks were part of trades, but let's go through it. We'll run through the list here. Round 1, pick number 5, Tua Tagovailoa, QB from Alabama. Round 1, pick 18, Austin Jackson, offensive tackle from USC. He has a fantastic story. Donated bone marrow to his sister who had, was it leukemia, I believe?
Yeah.
But he was a great player. Their last pick, 30th overall, Noah Igbenogany, corner out of Auburn. Then in the second round, they went Robert Hunt, offensive lineman from Louisiana Lafayette, and Raekwon Davis, defensive lineman from Bama. In the third round, they took Brandon Jones, safety out of DBU, Texas. In the fourth, they had one fourth-round pick. They went Solomon Kinley, guard from Georgia. 2 fifth-round picks. They went Jason Strobridge, defensive lineman from North Carolina, and Curtis Weaver, edge rusher from Boise State. In the 6th round, they went Blake Ferguson, long snapper from LSU. And in the 7th round, they drafted Malcolm Perry, quarterback / wide receiver / halfback / greatest football all-around player of all time from Navy. How do you guys grade their draft?
I have to give this draft a B+. I really like it. I think top to bottom, it's pretty solid. I think they can get production out of all these guys. The 2 names that really stand out to me that I really like is I'll start with Tua. I think if he's healthy, I think they do have indeed their franchise quarterback. And, once you find your franchise quarterback, that's an awesome stepping stone to becoming a great team. And then the Curtis Weaver pick, I was kind of surprised that he fell down so far, but I think he can be a great edge rusher, and he'll just be another asset to that improving defense.
Yeah, I have to give this. I give this draft an A. The only thing that stops me from giving it an A+ is some of the draft choices they decided to make. I mean, as much as I love Austin Jackson's story, was he worth the 18 overall pick?
Yes.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure he was. There were other offensive linemen that they could have drafted at that point that I believe were a little bit better.
Not worth a first round pick though.
Can you shut up? But I have to agree they have some really good picks. Getting Curtis Weaver in the 5th round is insane because he shouldn't have been there in the 5th round. I also love Malcolm Perry. I love any kind of just athlete that you put on the field. Getting a Navy quarterback and converting him into a wide receiver or a running back, I think will definitely help this team. They went offensive line heavy in this draft, getting things to protect Tua, which was really needed. I also love the defensive back out of Auburn. I think he actually did really well at Auburn, and I think that he was kind of a little bit under the radar with some of the other defensive backs that were in this class. And there's one other person.
The long snapper?
No, I'm not talking about the long snapper. People say drafting a kicker is a waste of a pick, but a long snapper really is. Robert Hunt and Solomon Kinley, I think, were 2 of their better offensive line picks. Monster, huge men that, in a couple years could be very good offensive linemen. But I think that honestly, in general, that this team is much improved after the draft, especially on that line.
Yeah, I give this grade a B plus, and that was actually on the low end for me. Agreeing with what Skylar said, I really like that they drafted that they addressed. They drafted 3 offensive linemen, which to me is fantastic. They did it within the first 4 rounds. Austin Jackson absolutely was worth the 18th overall pick. Had he been drafted in any other year that wasn't so filled with great tackles, he probably would have been a top 8 pick in the NFL draft. He was. You go watch the tape at USC, man. He was fantastic. He was one of the only solid parts of that. Honestly, just that athletic program in general. Robert Hunt, I like because he can play guard or tackle, and then Solomon Kinley is a solid guard. Kinley is 6'4", 339 pounds. Hunt is 6'6", 323. What I like about it is that it is following the New England/Green Bay way of their offensive linemen aren't first-round picks. You know, if you look at a lot of those teams, I mean, Green Bay, just because I'm more familiar with it, Elton Jenkins was, a second-round pick, I believe?
Second-round pick.
Corey Linsley was a third-round pick. David Bakhtiari, the best pass-protecting left tackle in the NFL, was a fourth-round pick. Billy Turner, who's their other guard, he actually wasn't drafted when he went to Denver. And then for the longest time, Brian Bulaga was the only first-round pick. And New England in a very similar fashion, as well. I mean, look at how long Sebastian Vollmer was there, and Sebastian Seabass was not a highly regarded pick. Tua, I do like the pick. A, because I'm going to be really happy to see a left-handed quarterback in the NFL again. B, he's a great player. And the thing I'm just worried about is that injury, because it is the exact same injury that limited the football career of one great Bo Jackson. It's the exact same injury. But from what we've seen, he looks good. I don't think Miami would have drafted him had the tape and had the medical x-rays come back in a very positive way. Noah Igbenogany, I'm not sold on. I'm not sold on him from Auburn, but I like it because he's going to be able to play with Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Left long snapper. I never understand why you draft a long snapper. It makes no sense to me. Malcolm Perry, I do love. He was responsible for 2017 all-purpose yards and 21 rushing touchdowns. That actually led FBS football, 21 rushing touchdowns last year. He was has been studly at Navy, and if he can get into that halfback system or even as a slot receiver, I think he'll play really well. But then, I'm actually with Mitch. I think Curtis Weaver was a great pick. This kid at Boise State had posted 13.5 sacks last season. What, did you say something about it too, Skyler?
Yeah, I said the reason there's no reason he should have been there in round 5.
But I said it first, and
I don't listen to what you say, Skyler. So
you just interrupt me. You just talk over me while I try to.
Yeah,
make
I'm
my
talking.
points out.
I'm talking.
Do you hear
now.
something?
I'm talking now. 13.5 sacks at 13.5 sacks at Boise State. He was great. To go back to Mitch's point, there was no reason for him to fall into the 5th round. A lot of really great players, but I'm not sold on the Brandon Jones pick. I'm not sold on the Raekwon Davis pick. I don't think Raekwon Davis deserved to be a second-round pick. I think that there were a lot better players available at that point. I don't like his statistics at Bama. He only had a half sack last year for playing on the defensive line. That was really good. He was definitely a step down from guys that Bama had in the past, like Keenan Williams and others like that. So we'll see how it works. But what I like is that they addressed their offensive line, which was a huge, crucial part. They do have their starting quarterback here for the future, even if Ryan Fitzpatrick plays this season. So all in all, it's a B+. I love it. I love it in general. But there's just some picks I don't necessarily agree with. Anything else to say, Skylar? I promise I'll listen this time. Did you mute yourself? Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, I actually muted myself, you fuckers.
That's fine.
Fun times. He has to love me. He's my cousin.
In our family, that's not true.
Your mom likes me, so that's fine.
Yeah, I think she likes you more than she likes me sometimes.
Yeah, she doesn't try to make me be gay.
He's not lying, Internet. He's not lying.
I'm not.
He's not like, my mom is disappointed that I'm straight. I love my mom to death. There you go, internet. Now you know.
All right, real talk on Fourth String Sports Podcast. So let's move on to their Dolphin schedule, 2020 schedule here. We've talked about them a few times. This is the second AFC East team we've covered. The first one was the Buffalo Bills, I think in like our 5th episode or something like that. So go back and listen to that. We've talked about them a few times actually with Jacksonville and with Denver and with the Chargers and the Rams and every bunch of the Raiders, all those teams like that. Go back and listen to all those episodes. But week 1, they go to New England where they had posted their greatest win in franchise history in a very long time from last season. I have them starting the year out 0-1. Even though I don't have faith in I'm not completely sold on Cam Newton and what the Patriots are going to look like because there's some question marks. This was one of the games where with Cam Newton playing, I originally switched this pick. So I'm going to say New England wins that, though I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think Kyle Van Noy is going to return back to New England and have a pretty good game.
Return to the Mac. So I think that the Patriots are going to get the win week 1 just because that, we don't know what the Miami Dolphins are going to look like. They got a lot of new pieces in, and with the COVID-19 offseason, it's going to take a lot of time for that to kind of mesh and gel together. And with the Patriots way being there for such a long time and most of these people already being established starters for years here, I just think that just gives them an advantage off the bat. And I just think the Patriots are a better football team right now. So that's why the Patriots will beat Miami week 1.
Yeah, I just have to go with the New England defense, honestly. The offense, I still don't know what it's going to look like. But I have faith in McDaniels, honestly. I think he does a pretty good job as our OC. I think we have a pretty good offensive line. So no matter what you're looking at, as long as our offensive line can hold, Cam can do whatever he wants to do in the backfield, we should be fine. So I have to go with New England. I will preface all of this with I had to restart my computer, and the thing I was using to put all of my games in didn't save. So I'll have to be looking back and I might have to go back.
We're on the schedule right now, sir.
Thanks, Mitch. So week 2, they host the Buffalo Bills. I have them losing this game as well. I have them. I'm not sold on Josh Allen as a quarterback. That's going to be left to see this season primarily. But I think that the Buffalo defense is going to be good enough to pick up this win. Buffalo played really well against Miami in both games. Buffalo picks up the win. Miami starts 0-2.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Buffalo Bills will beat the Miami Dolphins. I just think that the Bills defense is just going to smother the Miami's offense. I just think they're too good, and right now the Miami's offense is pretty pitiful. So that's just the overwhelming factor of why they're going to win.
Yeah, again, it's a great defense against an offense that we don't really know what will look like. Especially with that young offensive line that we're expecting them to field, with an improved defensive line on Buffalo, I think that it goes to Buffalo.
All right, so all in agreement so far. Week 3 matchup, they host the Jacksonville Jaguars. Hold on, I actually got to go back and double check something on here.
I checked my pick too. I don't want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, because I just looked. Yeah, I have them losing to the Jaguars here. This just felt like a game that Gardner Minshew was going to pull right out of his rear end. I think it's going to be closer than people say. But if I'm going to look at quarterback play, I'm going to trust Gardner Minshew more than Ryan Fitzpatrick, even though it's early season. I don't care. Again, with Miami, I like the pieces that they have, but I don't know how well they're going to mesh with the way that this season is. So I have Jacksonville winning that game.
All right. So I think that the Miami Dolphins will pick up their first win here because I think Jacksonville Jaguars will be the worst team next year and go 0-16. If you want my reasons, go listen to our episode on the Jags. And then secondly, I think that the Miami Dolphins has more talent right now than the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I just feel like to put them together, Miami's going to come out on top. And I think that we're going to see Fitzmagic.
Oh, no, it's the Minshew mustache that will reign supreme in week 3 in Jacksonville. If you want a reason, go look at what Gardner Minshew did while playing the Broncos. That's just the reason why. He was insane. Should have been sacked like 17 times, but didn't and won the game. So Duval.
All right, so then week 4 matchup, they host the Seattle Seahawks. I actually astonishingly have them beating the Seahawks. The Seahawks, to me, have probably the biggest question mark at the offensive line position. Here's why I like the Dolphins in this matchup. It's because the
Seahawks Mitch is dead.
I know. It's because the Seahawks have massive questions at the offensive line. They also have massive questions at the defensive line. The secondary is good. It's not great. It's okay. It's okay when you're playing teams that don't have a number 1 wide receiver. The Dolphins, unfortunately, do. This is where I think Fitzmagic actually makes his appearance. And even if it's not Fitzmagic, I think that Tua destroys the Seahawks here. I'm going to give my nod to the Dolphins on this game. If Miami can beat Philadelphia and New England last season, I think they can beat Seattle.
So for some reason they can't beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, but somehow they're gonna beat Seattle Seahawks with Russell Wilson. Oh my God, kid!
Yeah, I mean they got thrashed by teams last year, and yet they pulled out more wins against playoff teams than the Dallas Cowboys did. So who gives a fuck? Any given Sunday, dude.
All right, so I'm gonna bring everybody back into reality, and so the Miami Dolphins are gonna lose to the Seattle Seahawks as is tradition, just because they got Russell Wilson at quarterback, and Miami Dolphins have Ryan Fitzpatrick, who by this time of the year is usually, going on the downtrend, or they're going to put in compromised Tua Tagovailoa. So at quarterback matchup, it goes to the Seahawks, and I just think I like the Seattle offense a lot more than I like what the Miami offense could produce. And then even though Miami probably does have a little bit of an edge in the defensive battle, I just think that the Seattle Seahawks are a more complete team, and that's why they will beat Miami.
I'd like to point out, Mitch, that in the 15 career matchups between the Dolphins and the Seahawks, the Dolphins have won 10 of them, including 4 of the last 6. So you say as is tradition, but it's not very traditional.
I don't know where Brady keeps all this information. But no, I actually have to agree with Mitch on this one. I don't think Miami. It's not that I don't think Miami can pull off the upset. I just don't think they won't. They won't do it this week. I don't think. Because I agree. I think that the fact that they beat more over playoff teams than Dallas Cowboys did last year shows the fact that this is a scrappy team that can do really funny things at different times. I mean, as a New England fan, I've seen it. I've had to deal with it. 2 years in a row, we've lost our last game to Miami. Do you know how that's upsetting? So I can't doubt Miami. I can't. Okay, but in this one instance, I can say maybe they'll lose to the Seahawks. Maybe. I'm going to say maybe.
So wait, who do you have winning?
Seahawks.
Okay.
Maybe.
So at the quarter mark of the season, both me and Mitch have Miami at 1-3. Skyler has them at 0-4. Week 5 matchup, they go to San Francisco. I have them winning their second. No, I don't.
Mitch was gonna leave. Mitch was gonna leave if he was
This is the Bengals episode all over again.
But what if I did? No, they get absolutely thrashed by San Francisco. San Francisco defense is head and shoulders better than at that point. They're probably the best defense Miami's going to have to play. Their offensive line upgraded with the addition of Trent Williams. Questions at the running back position now that Raheem Mostert wants a trade, but I think that Miami, who did look bad at times against really good defenses last year, looks bad in this game, and they lose to San Francisco.
All right, we can go back to agreeing each other. I like that.
You know what? Now I'm changing my pick. Miami wins 49-0.
So I think the 49ers are going to have a huge, easy win over the Miami Dolphins. And I just think you have to look at one matchup to see why it's going to be such a mismatch. And that's because of the 49ers defensive line going against the Miami Dolphins offensive line. Because that defensive line is so stacked, and you're going to put that up against a really young offensive line that was pretty bad last year. It's Tua or Ryan Fitzpatrick better have their A game when it comes to running, because that's all they're going to be doing, man.
Don't you do it, Skyler. Don't do it.
Miami played really bad against some really good defenses last year. But they also beat some quality defenses in New England and Philadelphia. So you know what? I said last that they wouldn't get the upset last week, but they get the upset this week. They go into San Fran, and they pull off the upset. Tua appears in his first game because they've just gone 0-4. And they're like, you know what? We need some Tua. Tua comes in, and he beats San Francisco because you know what? Why not? Why not? If they can beat New England in New England, they can beat San Francisco in San Francisco.
So Mitch, what's more likely, Miami beats Seattle or San Francisco?
Both of your stupidity being genetic, I think, is more likely.
No, you got to answer.
All right. What was the question? Sorry.
Which is more likely, Miami beating Seattle or San Francisco?
I think that probably Seattle, just because the 49ers are stacked on defense. And even though Jimmy G, we all agree, isn't the best quarterback, he's still leading a pretty solid offense, whereas there's some more question marks on the Seattle's team in general. So I could see the upset there over the 49ers.
All right, so I'm changing Mitch's pick on the Seattle one to Miami.
No.
All right, Week 6 matchup, they then and again, this is brutal for me. I think we hinted at it at another episode, but Miami's going to have to go to San Francisco, fly back to Miami, and then go Week 6 to Denver, which is brutal. I have them losing that game, even though with the upgrades on the Denver even with the upgrades on the Miami defense, I think Denver's weapons are too strong. I think Drew Lock is going to have a good game. And I think that this is one of those games where Von Miller and Bradley Chubb and some of the other guys absolutely ball out. Denver beats Miami in week 6.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Denver Broncos are going to win this. Like you said, I just think that the Broncos' offensive weapons are too much. I think that Xavier Howard and Byron Jones are really going to have to earn their paycheck that day. And then when you flip the other matchups, Bradley Chubb, Von Miller, and then coming from the edges, and then Jarrell Casey coming up the middle. I think it's basically going to be a race for those three to see who can get to Fitzpatrick or Tua the fastest.
Yep, I have to agree with both of you guys. I think that Denver is just the better team right now. I think it's going to be more of a shootout than people expect because, with both of these offenses, I think it's going to be a little bit more of a shootout, mostly because both of them will be relying on their offensive lines not to crumble. Denver's offensive line is better, by far, than Miami's. But Miami's is improved. We've all kind of agreed by that. And I think later into the season, their offensive line will get better and better, but it's not there yet. Denver wins.
Don't agree.
All right, Week 7, they then finally get to head home where they play the LA Chargers. I have losing this game. I think that, again, the LA Chargers defensive line, I think their defense in general is just going to feast on the Dolphins. I think that this is where, Nick Bosa?
Joey.
Is it Joey? I get them mixed up all the time.
Yeah.
Joey
Nick plays for San Fran.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Joey is going to have an absolutely great game. He's going to have a better game than Nick did in the Week 5 matchup. I think that offensively, this is going to be the game where if we're going to see Justin Herbert in the early parts of the season, this is going to be the game where we're going to see it at. So I'm going to give my nod to the Chargers in the Week 7 matchup.
Before I give my pick, I just realized that the Miami Dolphins 3 straight weeks have to deal with Nick Bosa, then Von Miller / Bradley Chubb, and then go play Joey Bosa.
And then the next week they get Aaron Donald.
Dude, those I think for when the season is over and the Miami offensive line coach is trying to decide who their starters are going to be for the next year, all they have to do is look at that 4-game stretch and see who played the best, and that's who your starter is, and whoever didn't, cut them. Yeah. But anyways, back to our segment. I think that the Chargers are going to win just based off of the reasons that I said the Denver Broncos are going to win, just because that the Chargers have offensive weapons that are really going to test Byron Jones and Xavier Howard. They're going to have to earn their paycheck that day as well. And then I just think that Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram are most likely going to be living in the backfield.
According to my notes, I had Miami winning this game. So trying to be the model of consistency that I am having Miami win this game too. I don't think that on this Chargers defense, besides Derwin James and Joey Bosa, Melvin Ingram, too, has been playing consistently, but there were times last year where that Chargers defense let that team down. And I think that this could also be another time where they do the exact same thing. I think, again, whether it's Fitzmagic or it's Tua in under center, I think that they can take advantage of the middle of the field. They got more weapons. They got some Devontae Parker, I believe, is a wide receiver that started showing up for them. I think that they're starting to develop into a team that can actually be consistent when it comes to just play in general, where they're a scrappy team. They're a young team, and they want to win. They want to prove people wrong. Brian Flores is the best person to lead this team. I think that they can get the win, especially coming back after having to play San Francisco and Denver. I think they can win.
All right, Week 8 matchup, team we talked about on the last episode, the LA Rams. I have them losing this game. I have the Rams next season going 7-9. This is a game where there's no reason the Rams should lose it. They're just an all-around better team than Miami is, so I'm going to give my nod to the Rams on that matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I have the Rams winning this, even though I wasn't that high on them last episode. In this matchup, I think they definitely can get the win just because, they have Aaron Donald, and that Miami offensive line is basically going to have to quintuple cover him. And because I don't think any of them can win a 1-on-1 or 2-on-1 or 3-on-1 matchup with him. And then just because that, even though Jared Goff is the quarterback, I still think he's going to do enough with that offense to score some points. So that's why the Rams will win.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I have the Rams on a 4-game winning streak or 3-game winning streak coming into this game, and I think that they just, again, I've said many times, momentum is key in football, and I think that just carries for the Rams.
All right, so then at the halfway point of the season, me and Mitch both have Miami at 1-7. Skyler, you have them at 2-6. Coming into Week 9, they then go to the desert to play the Rams. The desert to play the Cardinals. Jesus. I have them losing this game against the Cardinals. I like the steps that the Cardinals have taken. With the Cardinals having a little bit of a weaker secondary, I think that this could be a game that the Dolphins can take advantage of. This could be a little bit more of a shootout, but with the addition of DeAndre Hopkins, Kenyon Drake showed up really well last year, and some of their draft picks we went over. Go back, listen to the Arizona episode. I like Arizona in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the Arizona could win very easily against the Miami Dolphins. I mean, the 4 wide receivers they have, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk, and Andy Isabella. I think that could just really overwhelm that Miami secondary. And then you add Kenyon Drake into the mix. That's just and then I just think that the Arizona defense can really show its potential against this Miami offense just because of the way the offensive line is right now, and there not being that many weapons for the Miami offense besides Devontae Parker and Mike Gesicki at tight end.
Yeah, I think that when we're looking at this, Arizona is my favorite to go worst to first in the NFL, and I think that it's mainly because of the improvements on their offense. I think that also adding Isaiah Simmons in that middle of that team, just being the jack of all trades that he is, he's probably the most athletically gifted person in any back seven across the league. So I have to give it to Arizona.
All right, Week 10 matchup, they host the New York Jets. I have them splitting the series against the Jets. I have them losing this game. I think these teams are going to go back and forth with each other the way that they did last season. I think that this is one of the few times the Jets are going to actually win a football game. So I'm going to have the Jets win this game here.
Yeah, I have the exact same picks with you yet again. I think they're going to split the series. I have the Jets winning this one, and then I have the Miami winning this one, and then Jets losing the next one. Sorry, I have Miami winning this one, and then Miami losing the next one. Sorry.
Okay.
I agree with you. I think that I think they're both bad teams, and I don't think any one of them has like a clear advantage against one another. So they're most likely going to be really competitive, and they're going to split the series. I don't see any one of them having an advantage over each other.
Brian Flores is better than that case.
All right. So then coming out of their bye week, they then turn around and host or then go to the New York Jets. Where I have them winning this, I think the Dolphins are going to benefit from the bye week. I think they're going to take a look at themselves sitting there at a 1-8 football team on my record. Understand that 1-8 I'll get to it at the end. they're going to look at themselves at a 1-8 football team. They're not going to be happy about the way they are. They're going to learn immediately from that game against the Jets and come out and beat the Jets in New York on the Week 12 matchup.
Yeah, I literally just said it. They're going to split the series just because they're both bad teams, and it's going to be competitive.
Le'Veon Bell is not a top 10 running back in the league.
So you have them clean sweeping the Jets.
Yes, because I don't have the Jets. Because I don't have the Jets winning a single fucking game.
Well, spoiler alert, Skyler.
I've said it like 7 times on this podcast.
All right, well then Skyler's not coming on for the Jets episode.
No, I'll just stand here.
Or the New England one.
I'll just stay here going like this. The entire time.
He can come on for the Giants one.
No.
You can come on for the Super Bowl 42 appreciation episode that we're going to do.
Still best team to never win a Super Bowl. Still best team to never win a Super Bowl.
All right. Week 13 matchup. They host the Cincinnati Bengals. This is going to be really interesting. Hopefully we're going to be able to see that Joe Burrow versus Tua Tagovailoa matchup like we did see at LSU Bama last year, which was a great game. If I'm going to look at it in this matchup, even if it's Tua at quarterback, I'm going to give my nod to Cincinnati. I think these teams are in similar positions where Cincinnati upgraded themselves defensively in a similar way to Miami did, but I like the overall offensive weapons Cincinnati has to bring to the table. We can agree both of these teams don't have a great offensive line, but if A.J. Green is healthy, and even if he's not, if Tyler Boyd and Joe Mixon and some of the other players that Cincinnati has are healthy, they far outclass what the Dolphins have. I'm going to give my nod to Cincinnati in that matchup.
Even though you have somehow the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line holding back Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. But that's another topic.
I'm giving Cincinnati the win, you fucking prick.
I know, but I'm talking about before. He's saying that Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram would get
Sunday.
Yeah, they're gonna get handled, but
Any given Sunday.
I'm sorry,
All
how
right.
many games do you have fucking Indianapolis losing in the middle of the season? You have them losing like 9 games just for
None. They're going 19-0, baby.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, literally 9 games in the middle of the season.
Yeah, 9-game winning
Don't
streak.
talk to me about sports. You can't handle the truth. Who do you
Whatever,
have winning,
Mr.
Mitch? Who do you have winning, Mitch?
Whatever, Miss Kobe's not in the top 10.
I gave my rationale for that.
All right, so I think the Bengals are going to win this one just because, like you alluded to, they're in similar positions, but I think the Bengals are like 2 to 3 steps ahead of them in the rebuilding process, and just because of that advantage of where the teams are at, that's why the Bengals will win.
If Tua's not playing, hasn't started a game yet, I don't think he will be starting for the rest of the season. I don't see a reason why to put him in for the last 6 games. Even if Tua's in the game, I have to give it to Joe Burrow and the Bengals because, I'm sorry, Joe Burrow's more clutch than Tua. How many times did Tua have a chance to win games, big games, and didn't win? He's also injury prone.
His first the national championship against Georgia when he came in and absolutely destroyed them.
Yeah, the first game. But then he lost a national championship against Clemson. He lost to LSU in a game that they easily could have won.
Almost blew the lead to Georgia in the SEC championship, and Jalen Hurts had to come in to help.
Tua's clutch in that one game, but other than that, he's not. He's not a clutch quarterback. I think that he can develop that. I think Joe Burrow is much more clutch because he had many times where he had to lead LSU back to win games.
One season.
Yeah, and Tua had one game, so
couldn't beat out JT Barrett or what's his fucking nuts at Ohio State.
Yeah, but he still has one more ring than they do.
And
he has one more ring. He has one more
beat out Heisman finalist. So,
but he still has one more ring than they do. Dwayne Haskins and JT Barrett didn't win rings at Ohio State. When a third string backup quarterback could. So you know what?
They got hurt.
We can have an end bad. They got hurt. We can have an end of season look back to a Tagovailoa versus Joe Burrow pick because I actually kind of disagree with you, Skyler. I think at this point this would be if Miami isn't playing for playoff contention, this would be the perfect time to get to a starting reps.
I mean, they could. It's why I don't play or coach or even have anything connected to the football world except for this podcast. So, but I think that Cincinnati wins because I agree with both of you guys. I think that they're about 2 steps ahead of where Miami is right now, but they're both going in the right direction.
Yeah, and we can all agree that the best quarterback in the draft class was Jake Fromm. So whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Week 14 matchup, they then host the Kansas City Chiefs. This is absolutely a loss. Kansas City they're going to be up 49-0 by half. This is just not even going to be a close game. Kansas City wins.
Yeah, Kansas City's going to win. It's going to be a slaughter. That's all that needs to be said.
I really want to go into the next really bad team that we have, which I think besides the Jets, because I don't want to give the Jets any credit. I want to give Washington and get all of the teams they should beat, make them lose, and make all the teams they should lose to win just to see Mitch's face. But on that, Kansas City beats Miami with just mercilessly. We're gonna turn off the TV. It's gonna be so graphic.
You could have had it where Miami beat
I know
teams that were in the Super Bowl last year.
I know, but I didn't because in Kansas City I said that they would beat Miami, so I can't go back on that. I can't.
Darn.
Consistency, Brady. It's key. Without it, what do we have? Mitch.
What are you talking about?
I'm giving you shit, okay?
I've been consistent with every point.
That was funny because it both sounded like he was trying to get you to say something, but then also make a jab at you. So that was clever. Week 15 matchup, they then host the New England Patriots. I have them winning this game. This is an end-of-season game in Miami. Fitzpatrick or Tua, whatever is going to happen. Now, it could be that New England wins because Gronk isn't going to be playing defensive back like he did on the Miami Miracle. But
Bill Belichick.
Nike the dog is going to go back
and catch it like a good boy.
Bill Belichick's going to scarf down 3 Subway footlongs while watching his Patriots lose again in Miami. No, this comes down to just simply the fact that I think I think New England's going to take a step back just because of some of the free agent losses. I don't know if they addressed everything within their draft to the best of their ability. I think this is one of those games where Kyle Van Noy is going to kind of step up. I think he's going to be disappointed in the outcome of their week 1 matchup. I think as a team, they're going to be disappointed. And I think Brian Flores takes games against New England personal. Not because he has anything against the organization, but because that is where he came from, and he's always going to get compared there. So I'm going to give Miami the nod there and say that they pick up their second division win of the season.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that all I need to know for Miami to win is that it's the Dolphins playing the Patriots. It's late in the season. It's in Miami, and Fitzmagic. Yeah. That's all I need to know for this upset win.
As a New England fan, we can't win against Miami anytime after week 14. So we're not going to win especially without Tom Brady. So, yeah, you know what? Miami wins.
That's the first time we've agreed on a win for Miami in this whole schedule. Week 16 matchup, they then come off a just team-high win against the Raiders or against the Patriots. They're going to go out to Las Vegas to play the Raiders, and they're going to lose. I think it's just I like the step that the Raiders are taking. I have this team as being better than they were, being at the same as they were last year, but I think all around a little bit of a better team. I think that the Raiders are going to come in with some brand new weapons. I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a great game. I'm going to give my nod to the Raiders in this matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the Raiders, I think they can win this matchup just because the Raiders are more established. They know what they want to do. They're a more rounded team, and I think that's the advantage coming into this matchup.
Yeah, I have the Raiders winning again because this will cap off an 8-game winning streak for the Raiders that I have predicted because I'm an asshole. Hey, Brady, what's more likely? Raiders winning 8 games or the Colts losing 8 games in a row?
I'd say any team losing more often than any team winning, solely because, if a freak accident happens and, Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett both get, herpes or something. Mono, yeah.
Kissing each other?
Yeah, kissing each other. They pull a Sam Darnold. And they get mono. You can have that kind of stretch. We saw it with Green Bay when, Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbones and stuff. I don't really see any team that's not a Super Bowl contender winning 9 or 8 straight games. So I would say it'd be more likely that Indianapolis loses 9 straight than the Raiders winning 8 straight.
I actually just wanted to know. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, Mitch.
2 against 1.
It's the small victories. All right, so then Week 17 matchup, they end the season at Buffalo. At first, I really wanted them to split the series with Buffalo. But I've already said that Buffalo is going to sweep the Dolphins. I have Buffalo winning this game. I think this is the game where Buffalo is going to clinch a playoff spot, but not necessarily a divisional title. I'll hint at that once we get to the New England episode in the next couple. So, yeah, I'm going to give it to Buffalo. They get a clean sweep over the Dolphins.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think the Buffalo Bills will get a clean sweep over the Miami Dolphins. I just think they're vastly superior in pretty much every way when you're comparing the Miami Dolphins, and that's why they get a clean sweep.
With this Miami team, I don't think anybody can clean sweep them, honestly. I think that they're just scrappy, they're young, and by this point in the season, they should know their identity offense and defensively. This is the team that Brian Flores wants. So Brian Flores and the Miami Dolphins keep the Buffs out of the Bills out of the playoffs. Go Miami.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So
shocker.
Then to end the season here, Skylar, you have Miami at 6-10, including 4-2 in division, in large part due to a split series with Buffalo and New England and sweeping the Jets. Me and Mitch both have Miami at 3-13 at 2-4 in division. 3-13 to me isn't an unsuccessful season for Miami. This team, unfortunately, scrapes the bottom of the barrel for a few reasons. A, they're very young. And B, they have a brutal schedule. Like Mitch even talked about that 4-game stretch where they got at San Fran, at Denver, and then home against both LA teams. That's brutal. To end the season on 2 road games where they've got to go cross-country to the Raiders and then come back and go up to Buffalo. We're talking about a game in Buffalo that's most likely in January. That's brutal. And then they get to also play teams like Kansas City, and Seattle and other teams like that. Even though I haven't beaten Seattle, I think it's a brutal schedule that Miami is going to have to deal with. But I think it's going to make this team all around better for the 2021 campaign, and it also is going to help their draft stock because they do have 2 first-round picks, them and Houston's, and we also don't expect Houston to do very well. I think. Let me go back actually and take a look and see what I have Houston's record at.
I think we both had them at 4-12.
Houston.
You had him at 6-10.
Yeah, I have him at 6-10. So for me on my list, that's good enough for like a top 12 pick, I think. So Miami's going to have multiple very high first-round picks.
Yeah, I have to check on mine because again, everything's kind of fucked up. But with those 2 teams being what they need to, Miami would have 2 top 10 picks on my draft. So that's that would be good for them. I think that they could use it to improve. If not their offensive line, seeing how that ends up by the end of the season, they could even use it for their linebacking core, which also needs help.
Yeah. Mitch, any closing thoughts on the Miami Dolphins before we get to what a putts?
I think that, either our opinions about them being really good or really bad is probably going to be wrong just because there's such a question mark thing, and I don't think anybody knows how they're going to do, especially even Brian Flores and everybody in the Miami's organization. They're just a really big question mark, and nobody's going to know until week 1 and so on. So I'm interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
No, you're good.
No, go ahead. You got a point.
No, I was just agreeing with Mitch.
Okay. So then we'll move on here to our What a Putt segment now. Usually within this segment, we will all pick a person, a team, an organization who fucked up so astronomically that we think that it's hilarious and nominate them for What a Putts. Within this one, we came to a group consensus. And consensusly, based off of the Washington Post article that was hinted at for the last couple of days that dropped today, we are nominating for the 3rd time the Washington to be determines, specifically Dan Snyder. Now, a story came out that had been hinted several times. The allegations raised by one woman, and unfortunately I did not write her name down. One woman who came out publicly, 15 other women who were staying in anonymity as a fear of being sued, stated that from 2006 to 2019, which spans the majority of the Dan Snyder tenure, that there are allegations that fell into 2 categories. 1, unwelcome overtures or comments of a sexual nature, and exhortations to wear revealing clothing and flirt with clients to close sales deals. Basically, women within the organization were pimped out. Now, this also goes in large part to a story that came out back in 2013, where the Redskins forced some of their cheerleaders to go to an island retreat, where they told them they were doing a photo shoot, and then they got there, told them that it was a naked or a topless photo shoot. Several of the women were then forced to go on dates with some of the men who were there to watch them during the photo shoot, and a lot of those men were high-ranking executives within the Washington Redskins organization, within the organizations of several donors who partook with the Washington Redskins, as well as with just some high-level contractors that these girls had to go on to dates with right afterwards. Some of the people announced within these allegations were radio announcer Larry Michael, former director of pro personnel Alex Santos, Robert Mann II, a former assistant to Santos, former business president Dennis Green, and former chief operating officer Mitch Gresham are named as having harassed or berated the 15 women in the Post story. 14 of those women spoke on the condition of anonymity, as I stated. Applegate states that it was the most miserable experience of her life, she said, of working her year for the club when she left in 2015. And I quote, "And we all tolerated it because we knew if we complained and they reminded us of this, there were 1,000 people out there who would take our job in a heartbeat." Among the worst of the allegations, Applegate says that Gershman routinely berated her for minor problems while complimenting her body. Texts from Mann to one female employee discuss an office debate over whether her breasts were real or not. Mann told her repeatedly that he intended to squeeze her butt, despite the woman's objections. 6 employees accused Santos of pressuring them to date him. 2 female reporters, Miss Rhiannon Walker of The Athletic and Miss Nora Princati of The Ringer, told the Post that they had been harassed by Santos. Greshman denied a bunch of these allegations. Snyder is not available for comments, refuses to be. This is sickening. This is absolutely sickening. If these were your sons who were doing this to your daughters, or if these women were your daughters, it's just sickening, and it's ridiculous. Some of this stuff that exists, and that was happening right here openly in the NFL. And I think that it's pretty safe to say that because of this, and because with everything that is happening with the organization in Washington, that Dan Snyder is most likely out. So usually we save this segment to be a little bit of a funnier, more lighthearted segment. But this one is just pure disappointment and disgust in the Washington Redskins organization for allowing this to happen. The whole world needs to be better. And if you're a Redskins fan, or if you're any fan of football, you should be ashamed that this happened within the sport that you love, that I love, because it's disgusting. And it brings a tear to my eye, truly thinking about what these women had to go to and go through just because of their job and because they wanted to keep their job. So it's disgusting is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, everything that's happened that the Washington Post has talked about is fucking disgusting. It's heartbreaking. It's bullshit. It's a very real issue that's still happening, today and that kind of stuff. I mean, Dan Snyder's tenure is a really big black mark on the Washington franchise, and I think the NFL history of football. With his stance on the name, which is a derogatory term for Native American people, and now how he's treating female employees, it's just fucking utter garbage. Goodell, he's got to, bring down the hammer and force him to sell the team because this is bullshit. I mean, in the NBA, they kicked out Donald Sterling just for saying the N-word, and if Goodell somehow pussyfoots this, it doesn't kick him out of being ownership, that's fucking garbage. So yeah, this whole thing is just we gotta do better. We gotta do better as a people. We gotta do better as men, and we gotta do better as a species for this. This is, I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, this isn't just an NFL issue. I have friends that are cheerleaders and dancers and things like that, and the kind of terms that they get thrown at them, the kind of the way they're talked to by specifically older men is disgusting because they just want to be a cheerleader. And I mean, we're all NFL fans, we're all football fans. We see what these girls, but Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders specifically is what comes to mind, or wear what they're forced to wear sometimes to have a job. And that's disgusting. It's disgusting what white men specifically have done to women and gotten away with it for decades. And I agree with Brady and Mitch here. Any chance of Dan Snyder becoming redeemable, keeping this team is gone now because of what he tolerated and what he, for all intents and purposes, encouraged to happen in his organization to his female employees. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It doesn't matter if they're your wife or your sister or your cousin or your aunt, right? These are human beings. These are people, okay? You wouldn't want that on. You shouldn't not just want it because they're related to you. You shouldn't want it in general. I have to agree. It's disgusting. And as a person that actually genuinely liked the Washington franchise, who look at them and was like, this is a cool team and I want them to succeed because I'm tired of the Giants and the Cowboys succeeding. I'm disgusted having known that and rooted for this team in the past. So I agree with Mitch. We need to do better. We need to do better.
Yeah, it's a somber day when anything like this comes out because football is a sport that I love, that I've always loved. And there's a lot of money to be made in football. A lot of people can attest to that. But what a lot of the women basically were being treated as were prostitutes. Stories came out where people were encouraging the women to wear lower and lower cut shirts, tighter pants, frequently forcing them or highly suggesting that they come to the office without wearing underwear. Dan Snyder made it a point to make the cheerleading squad more and more risque. And one girl even quoted as saying that it became more along the lines of pole dancing than it did genuine cheerleading. And cheerleading in and of itself was in the NFL is kind of just meant to ogle at, like it's a shame. But for some people, it brings pretty obvious joy, especially for cheerleaders. In no circumstance should anyone have to go through what a lot of these women went through. A lot of these men have since been fired or have resigned, but they are fighting extensively against these allegations. And unfortunately, right now, that's what we have to call them. I 100% believe them, but we have to call them allegations because in this country, you are innocent until proven guilty. Hopefully, justice does come, even if it's just meant that these men are never allowed to work again. But the fact that these women were pimped out to high-level suite owners is ridiculous, and it's saddening. So I do apologize that we had to make our What a Pud segment, which is, as I stated, usually such a lighthearted segment, a little bit more somber, but this was a story that had to be told, especially because it broke about 2 hours before we recorded. We stand with victims. We all have. We always have. I just want to put this in there that if you or a loved one are currently experiencing anything along those lines, our email is fourthstringsp@gmail.com. You can always email us and we will do our best to put you within the best situation to succeed and get you in contact with resources. If you're ever scared of anything like that, the best thing to do is to fight and to try to take the correct channels in order to make sure that your voice is truly being heard. And if there's anything that we can ever do to assist anybody who is a survivor or is currently experiencing sexual harassment or assault or any form of harassment or assault, we will gladly do that. We're an open podcast. We're three guys from southeastern Wisconsin. We've all dealt with our own stuff. Well, we're two guys from southeastern Wisconsin. We're one guy from buttfuck Nebraska.
The sands of Nebraska.
Yeah, exactly. The sands of Nebraska. We'll always do what we can to support people in any way that we can. So we appreciate everybody for tuning into this episode. Thank you so much for listening.
Brady, didn't we have an email?
Oh, that's right. We did. I get to pick, before I read it off here, I get to pick the next What's List segment. And that is that I'm going to have the boys rank or at least give me 5 of the best sports nicknames. So whether this is Megatron or Sweetness or the Babe or, the Hebrew
The Kid.
Hammer or whatever
Big
it is.
Bobby.
Anything, give them to me. Because one thing I'm missing in sports is that I don't feel like we have as good of nicknames anymore. And I miss the good nicknames. I miss the Sheriff and the Gunslinger. Stuff like that. I love those nicknames. So I want the boys to read them off to me. Mitch also has his list for the episode after that, but we'll hint at that with the next one. So, yes, we did get a listener email, and we do highly appreciate that. The listener email was in response to an episode that we had done a couple of weeks ago. It was in response to the Kansas City episode. And the listener from the Kansas City episode basically asked along the lines, or here, I'll read it off to you. Said, hey, guys, I love the show. So we do appreciate that. But he said, hey, guys, I love the show. Just a quick question that's been floating around in my head. If Kansas City and Mahomes wins one more Super Bowl, is Mahomes a better all-time quarterback than Aaron Rodgers?
I'll start as the Green Bay Packer fan. He will have more Super Bowl wins, but I think say if it came next year or 2 years from now, I can't do it yet, and not because there's a bias or anything, just because that Mahomes has only been in the league as a starter for what, 3, 4,
Should be his third year.
Yeah, so his third. So if he wins it next year, his third year, and he has 2 Super Bowl wins, and I gotta say he's better than a guy who's been around longer and had more sustained success. Because who knows, maybe like he wins in year 3 and then year 4, it's just a steep decline into shit. So I gotta wait before I can make that claim. So right now it has to be Aaron Rodgers.
I say he's on the right path to being better than Aaron Rodgers. I mean, doing the things he's done. I mean, NFL MVP, putting up the numbers he did in his first full season, winning the Super Bowl in his second full season. He's definitely on the right path. And with the weapons he has around him, I think he's in position to do really well. I think the salary cap is going to start hurting Kansas City here soon, 2021 I'm looking at specifically, and that might limit it. But I agree with Mitch. I think it's a little too soon to tell. If they win the Super Bowl next year, I definitely think he's going to be put in the conversation of one of the best young quarterbacks, if not the best young quarterback, because I still think he's the best young quarterback right now. I think it's going to take a couple of years before we can see what he does. And it might be after Aaron Rodgers retires, honestly.
Yeah, we appreciate that, listener, sending it in. And if anybody has any other questions or anything on any episode that we do, email us, fourthstringsp@gmail.com. That's fourth string, or FOURTH string sp@gmail.com. Super Bowl wins doesn't equal best quarterback. Like Jim McMahon has 2 Super Bowl wins, technically. Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowl wins, but I don't think anybody would rank either of those guys as a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. Pat Mahomes is definitely a fantastic quarterback. Pat Mahomes hasn't lost 2 seasons to injury the way that Aaron Rodgers did. Pat Mahomes hasn't had to have a defense that's given up on average over 30 points per game in playoff games. Aaron Rodgers, in terms of quarterback rating, is statistically the best quarterback in the postseason in a very long time. And then when you just go into his statistics, like offense or, even just in regular season, I mean, he's got per 1,000 throws, he averages, or 1,000 attempts, he averages 1.4 interceptions. Like, that's nothing. He's one of the only quarterbacks ever to have over 20 touchdowns and fewer than 2 interceptions within a season, or fewer than 5 interceptions within a season, and he's done it multiple times, including the last 2 seasons. Pat Mahomes is a great quarterback. Say that again?
He's the Hail Mary King, man.
He's the Hail Mary King, too. And also RIP to Aaron Rodgers and Danica Patrick. They broke up today. That also dropped. They've been dating for 2 years, so yeah, sad. But single Aaron Rodgers always plays a little bit better than Aaron Rodgers in a relationship.
We're getting the Super Bowl!
Because weren't Packers fans blaming Olivia Munn for
there were some assholes who were blaming Olivia Munn for that, and that's just not okay.
I'm like sitting here going, he's dating Olivia Munn. He's winning no matter what. But no.
I think Pat Mahomes is on the right track, just like what Skylar said. See, this time I did listen to you. And even what Mitch said too, there's just a lot that's left to be desired. He's so young in his career. There's so many unknowns. If anyone would have said after 2010 Aaron Rodgers would not even get to another Super Bowl, they'd have been called crazy. So nobody really knows what the NFL is ever going to look like. I think he has the potential to be, though.
People said Tom Brady was done after he injured his ACL, and he won 3 more Super Bowls. So we have no idea. And I agree with the point on Jim McMahon and Eli Manning, because fuck Eli Manning. But no, that was a good question. Fuck off.
Yeah, it was a great question.
You hate Duke because they beat you in one championship game.
No, that's why Mitch hates Duke. I hate Duke because I've always liked North Carolina.
Okay, well, you know what? Still,
I'm not petty. I'm going to end the recording before you guys can respond. No, we appreciate everybody listening in. Guys, send in your listener emails. fourthstringsp@gmail.com. We'd love to read them off. And even if you guys have suggestions for the what's list, we always keep them in mind. We literally are just coming up with stuff randomly. I think we're going to get slightly more weirder and weirder with it as we go, until eventually we're just like, name the top 5 cleats that you ever saw. That kind of stuff. So, but no, we appreciate everybody for listening. Follow us on everything: Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, literally everything. Follow us, Fourth String Sports Podcast. Email us at the Gmail email that I've read off like probably 6 times already today. Before we do just any closing thoughts, or sorry, who do we have next? Minnesota?
Oh, New England.
No, Minnesota.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, so we'll wrap up the NFC North on the next episode, where we'll talk about the Minnesota Vikings, Lizzo's favorite team. So for everybody who's a Vikings fan, and then we have the news coming up. We've got New England, New Orleans, New York, and New York. So we got some more jumping around to do in terms of the AFC, NFC. We've got some title contenders that are in there and some bottom feeders that are in there. So if you're fans of any of those franchises or any franchise that we haven't talked about, send us an email. Let us know what you guys want to think. We're also in the next couple of weeks. Baseball comes back in about 7 days. Basketball at the end of the month. Football training camp rookies can report effective Monday for the NFL for some organizations. So we're excited. Everything's gearing up, but unfortunately in some places we're also seeing a massive spike in COVID cases. So please.
Looking at you, Florida.
Jesus Christ. Stay healthy. Stay out of populated areas if you can. Don't go to the beach.
Stay out of Jacksonville.
There was
out of Georgia.
There was a thing that was done where 2 hairdressers tested positive for COVID-19. Before they had tested positive, they had combined seen 150 people. But because they were wearing masks and the people getting the haircut were wearing masks, no one else tested COVID-19 positive. So that you should just wear a mask. It's not that difficult.
It's like if you're both wearing masks, it's like 0.1% of you getting COVID. So it's like it's just slip on, you're done with it.
It's not, and unless you're going jogging or you're just like,
like as a person with asthma, I can still breathe when I'm wearing a mask.
And he's got asthma and he chooses to smoke. So like if he chooses to
This is the first time I've smoked in months, fuckers. Fuck you. End the recording. I'm done with this.
So if he could do that, then you guys could do it too. But no, we appreciate everybody for tuning in. Everybody have a fantastic night, and thank you for listening to episode 22 of the Fourth String Sports Podcast.